Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be reviving my 8-month-old starter that has been sitting in the back of the fridge. You can see all of the hooch here that it has accumulated. So I went ahead and threw that out. And then here I am mixing the starter just a little bit. And then I start adding some to my new clean jar. I added 16 grams of starter to my jar when I noticed that it was not very well mixed all the way to the bottom, and I wanted to just get a little bit of the whole starter or the discard that's all the way from the bottom of the jar, if that makes sense. So I went ahead and mixed it again, and then when it was very well mixed up, you can see how watery it is now. I ended up putting 30 grams of discard into my new clean jar. And then I wanted to add about 100 grams of water. I think I added about 103, you can see here. And I went ahead and mixed it together very well before adding my flour. I like to mix it before I add my flour because I feel like the starter or the discard dissolves better and there are no chunks. That way, when the flour hits it, I don't know, I just feel like it mixes easier and better. And I don't know, I just prefer it this way. I was aiming to add the 103 grams of flour, but I ended up adding 112 and it's fine. I prefer my starter to be on the thicker side, especially when you're trying to wake it up again. Sometimes doing a ratio equal parts flour and water isn't enough, and sometimes it still stays a little bit watery. So I didn't mind adding that extra few grams of flour. And you can see here that I am mixing the flour very well, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, making sure that there are no chunks of flour left over. Sometimes the flour can stay stuck at the bottom of the jar, so I like to go in there and scrape it off very well to make sure that everything is mixed. Here is the consistency of my starter. It's nice and thick, almost like a pancake batter consistency, but a little bit thicker. It's not falling off of my spatula. I believe that the thicker you feed your starter, the thicker it is, that the more it feeds, the stronger it gets. So I prefer my starter to be thick rather than watery or too thin. So now I let my starter stay at room temperature and I show you guys my old starter. I accidentally cracked the jar without noticing, and when I was going to feed it, I wasn't sure if there was any glass pieces inside of it, so that's why I am trying to revive my starter. So this is the evening of day 1. You can see a few bubbles in there, starting to see a little bit, tad bit activity. Obviously not active yet. It hasn't risen at all. I didn't mark it in the morning because I knew there was going to be no progress, but I decided to add more flour to the starter. I didn't discard anything because I didn't want to throw away anything without it growing. I didn't want to be left with just flour and water. So I ended up adding 60 grams of flour and 60 grams of water on top of what I already had. And I started mixing the starter with the new flour and water. And then I realized that it was too watery, and that's what happens usually when your starter is too acidic. So giving it extra flour will make it stronger and not as watery, so, and less acidic. So that's what I did. I added more flour. I didn't measure anything, I just eyeballed it to my liking. And then this is the thickness and the consistency that I got. This is how thick I like my starter to be. And I just closed the lid. I actually marked it this time just to see if there was going to be any growth in the morning. This is the night before. And then on day 2, we see a tad bit of growth. And this got me really excited. You can see there's lots of bubbles, but you can see how it kind of looks foamy almost. that means your starter is acidic and it's hungry. So we're going in the right direction. I ended up discarding most of it, and this is all I'm left with. Since I did see that there was some activity, I wasn't afraid that I threw out too much because I did see a lot of bubbles. So I knew that even if I was left with a little bit, it was going to grow. So here I am feeding my starter again. I ended up adding about 70 grams of water, and I went ahead and mixed it because I like to dissolve my starter into the water first. And then I added about 78 grams of flour. I went a little bit over, but it's okay. The thicker, the better. So I mixed everything together, making sure that there are no pockets of flour left at the bottom or the sides of the jar. I mix it very well. You can see I'm scraping my jar once again. I love to do this. I like to get my jar as clean as possible, and this is the thickness of the starter. It's pretty thick this time, but I didn't mind because I feel like the thicker, the stronger it gets. So I closed the lid. I went ahead and marked my jar again to see how much it grows, just to show you guys. And this is what it looks like. And now this is day 3, and you can see there was more growth. It actually looks like it doubled in size. So that's very, very exciting. You can see there's lots more bubbles inside, way more activity. So I went ahead and discarded, and I am feeding once again. So if your starter isn't getting as bubbly as mine is, you can definitely feed and discard every 12 hours. So in the morning, you can feed it, and then at night again, you could do this until your starter is active. Some starters will take longer or more feedings for it to get active, and you could even add some whole wheat flour to give it that extra boost, and that will definitely make your starter strong as well. I just didn't have any on hand, and I wanted to show you guys that you don't need the wheat flour, but if you do have some, you can definitely use it to feed your starter. It will absolutely love it, and it will grow and get strong, maybe even faster than mine did. So here I just fed my starter. This is how thick the consistency is. And I went ahead and marked this jar once again just to see it, growing, to make sure that it is active enough for us to use. So this is day 4 of, bringing it back to life. You can see that my starter almost tripled in size, and this made me very, very happy. Look at how bubbly it looks from the inside. It doesn't look acidic, it's not too watery. To me, this is the perfect consistency. You can see some of the bubbles there, and this made me very, very happy. So I'm going to show you guys day 5. I didn't mark the jar after this point, but you can see how it's grown, and here it's actually at its peak. I was ready to mix some dough, and made me so happy. So I hope you guys learned something from today's video. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.